Zooming in is Mike Corrado. He's a veteran of the Marine Corps, singer, songwriter, and if you're a fan of this show and a regular listener, you've heard some of his greatest songs out there to date. Mike, I want to thank you for joining us. And if I could just get started, I always ask this at the beginning. Let's start with your origin story. What led to you joining the service? How did that come about, and the decisions that were surrounded about that?
That is kind of a funny story. I grew up, I started playing music in like second grade, and I did that all through school. And then it was time to look at colleges, kind of post high school life, and had a band director because I went to three different high schools in three different states.
Hmm.
My dad had moved around quite a bit, and the last high school, the band director had gone to East Carolina School of Music, which is in Greenville, North Carolina. We went down there and we checked it out, talked to the professors, got accepted there. Everything was on track. Um, and at the same time, had a friend who had gotten accepted to the Citadel, which is in Charleston, the military college of South Carolina down there in the beautiful Charleston. And I went to go visit. I did a school visit down there, and I really just fell in love with Charleston. And I also kind of looking back was reflecting on East Carolina had a pretty good reputation as a party school. And I realized if I would have gone there, I probably would have done about a semester and then probably dropped out and joined a band and all that kind of stuff. So wound up going to the Citadel. uh didn't really have I had a basic understanding of the military. My grandfather was in the Navy. um I had an uncle who was in the Air Force. I knew Air Force's planes, Navy's ships. That's pretty much the extent of it. I didn't understand the nuances or the differences between Army and Marine Corps and all that kind of stuff. So I went to when I signed up at the Citadel, I was like, well, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the military, and this is going to prepare me for that. And it was very Army centric at the time. The president of the school was a retired two-star um, Army, and a lot of the staff and the commandant of cadets is Army. That's all actually changed now, but um, I had signed up for Army ROTC. I started taking that, and I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. Had no idea what the Marines were, any of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I went and sat and talked to this captain because my thought was I had talked to some people at school, and they were like, oh, yeah, in between your freshman and sophomore year, you can go to airborne school. And in between your junior or your sophomore and junior year, you can go to air assault school. And then between junior and senior year, you can go to Ranger School. So when you graduate and you get commissioned, you've got all three.
Yeah.
It was a program they were doing back then. I don't know if they're still doing that now, but and I'm like, all right, well, that's what I'm doing. So I sat down and talked to this captain, and he was like, what's your family history and this and that? Have you ever had asthma as a kid and that kind of stuff? I was like, yeah, I had asthma as a kid, and I still have an inhaler. I kind of, you know, every once in a while I'll use that and whatever. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, son. He goes, you, he's like, unfortunately, you'll never be able to wear the cloth of our nation. And he's like, it's been so great for my family and I'm sorry that you'll never get to experience that. And good luck to you.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
And and the Citadel it's a military school, but it's a state school. So it's not like an academy where everybody goes in. I would say the majority of people don't. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but somewhere around I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20% probably go into one of the services. The rest, it's just it's a state school. Um, so I'm like, wow, okay, I guess. And this is like a couple months into my college career. I'm just starting out. I'm like, okay, Army's off the table. I guess everything else is too. And then I did Air Force ROTC for a year, thinking about my uncle, and then I was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Hmm.
And then I, had some friends that were doing the Marine ROTC option, and I went and did the Devil Dog program with them, and they just worked the piss out of us. And then I was just like, I found my tribe,
Yep.
And then I graduated in '92, so this is post golf, um, kind of drawdowns. Not They weren't hurting for people. Matter of fact, I think they were trying to kind of slim the herd. But I wound up getting in, and that was it. That was you know at that point, music was something I did for fun, for relaxation. It wasn't until later on that I even learned the term therapy. But now looking back on it, 30 plus years later, um, you know, music was my therapy. So
Sure.
to be able to go through a military career, always have music to play, to write, to perform once in a while, and then it was always a good thing for me. And now that I am, uh, retired and out of the service, I know that there's a lot of folks that are kind of in the same boat. Music really moves them, arts really move them, and that's why I am now in the business of trying to help veterans achieve their goals and dreams.
Yeah, I love everything you've been doing. I've been watching you and listening to your music for, I mean, some of your earlier videos, I think, my gosh, I think there's some that are 15 or more years easily on your YouTube channel. So we'll get into that and all the albums and that. But I'm curious about, you obviously, just like everyone in the service, you did some travels. So I'm curious about some of those, we'll call them pit stops. And how did it shape up for when you knew you were getting out of the service? Kind of walk our listeners through that, I guess, mental exercise of, okay, I really want to pursue this as a living. Walk us through kind of that phase and those steps of how that came about.
Okay, so that actually happened twice.
Okay.
Uh, I wound up getting commissioned in '92. I was after the officer candidate school. I went to the basic school, and then I went to the infantry officer course, and then after that, I went to Camp Lejeune, picked up my first platoon. So it was third platoon, Bravo Company, First Battalion, Second Marine Division, and um, that's where it started. From there, while I was at 1-2, we did a deployment, kind of a rapid deployment to Cuba during the whole Cuban Haitian migrant thing. That was my first pit stop. Um, and then after that, I wound up doing this thing called Unitas, which is a composite um, landing force, and um, or like a kind of like a mini Mew, but not as. But anyways, we went around to all these different places. We got on a ship. We did a 6 month workup. We did a 6 month deployment on the USS Ashland, and we started out in North Carolina, went to Puerto Rico, then we went to Venezuela, then we went through the Panama Canal. We kind of hit all the places around South America, working with South American forces, training with their Marines, doing amphibious landings,
Wow.
sharing doctrine, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Got to go around the Horn, the very southern tip of South America, which was an unforgettable experience. And then we went up to uh, Buenos Aires, and then we went to Rio, and then we shot across the Atlantic and went over to Africa, the west coast of Africa for a little while. So that was a pretty cool tour.
Sure.
Um, and it was actually right before that. During the workup, I had flown from North Carolina to Anaheim, California, recorded my first CD. It was actually a CD cassette combo. This is 95 now.
Right,
So,
right.
um,
For you younger kids,
yeah. The cassette is this little square type thing, and it's,
and you needed a
anyways,
pencil to, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, that came out while I was on the ship, and my parents had mailed me some copies, and um, I wound up passing them around to Marines and sailors. And the next thing you know, the music's playing over the one MC on the ship, and then I became that singing lieutenant. And it was neat. It was
That's
neat
great.
because everybody was like, it was different, and
Yeah,
it was new, and not a lot of people were doing that kind of stuff. And for this, this guy, I don't know, it was pretty neat. Got to play some Steel Beach parties too, which was fun. Um, so, on the weekends when I wasn't in the field or on deployment or off training somewhere, I would go down to this little bar, Topsail Island in North Carolina, and I'd just go play. I'd open up for people, I'd play on the back deck and all that kind of stuff. And then that kind of led to a band, and then the band, we started making some noise in Eastern North Carolina and starting to play kind of up and down the Carolinas, when we could. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to get out and I'm going to do this full time. So at the time, the majority of the band that I was with were all Marines from the 2nd Marine Division Band.
oh, cool.
And we all kind of EAS'd at the same time. We got in a van, worked our way up to a van. Um, but did the van thing, and we were doing 250 shows a year for 4 years straight. I mean,
Wow.
just on the road. We wound up getting management, started to open up for some big people, started getting some radio play. Things were going well. And then I had an album that was getting ready to come out, and the release date on the album was September 12th, 2001.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And obviously, the events of the day prior really changed all that in the trajectory of things. And then, the guys wound up going back to school or getting other jobs or that kind of thing. And, we're all Marines, and they're like, yeah, we get it. You got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
Because I had been mobilized, back to active duty. So 2001, late 2001, the mobilization occurred, and then I was mobilized for like 4 years, and then I was a company commander and operations officer, dual hatted at the time, and I was just like, yeah, you can't train your people up and then be like, all right, have fun storming the castle. And
Right.
because our 4th year of that mobilization, everything was leading up to it. That 4th year was a year deployment in Iraq, and I'm like, well, I got to go.
Yeah.
So by the time I did that, having already 5 years under my belt on active duty, and then now 4 years, I'm like, I'm almost at at 10 years. So when I was in Iraq, I put in a package for the active reserve program. The Army calls it the AGR,
Hmm.
active guard and reserve. Navy calls it FTS, full time service. But basically, you support the reserve component, or in my case, you support the reserve component, but then you also do the integration piece. So, integrating the active and the reserve forces. Um, so I had gotten out, and chose to do music full time, and that's what I did. And it was some of the absolute most fun, best times, poorest times, of my career, of my life. Um, but it was amazing. All those things kind of go into the toolkit on, how to survive. But the
Great.
beauty of all being service members, or in this case Marines, um, is we all had a mission mindset. We all knew what we had to do to make it, um, and we just did. So we just applied all those things that we had learned as far as achieving goals, accomplishing the mission, this and that. And then I wound up getting picked up for the AR program. Got back from Iraq, went to Kansas City, worked at a reserve site, INI inspector instructor site.
It's
Um,
funny what
and
sticks in your head, right?
yeah, So, while I was out there, I was playing music, and it was just, again, back to the hobby thing and the weekend thing. And then I won a competition with this song called On My Watch Tonight in the video, and I won like 10 grand. I'm like, this is cool. And then I wound up getting interviewed for Rolling Stone while I was in Kansas City, because I never forget, I had a Marine. His name at the time, he was a corporal, Corporal Matt Amos, and he was my assistant I, and he gets a phone call, and his office is right outside of my office, and he gets a phone call, and he's just like, "Hey, sir, there's somebody from Rolling Stone on the phone that wants to interview you. Do you have time?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do have time." So we still laugh about that. We still keep in touch, and um but it's just little funny moments like that. And then after Kansas City, we went to Hawaii. Hawaii wound up being really good, um, both from a career standpoint, because I learned a lot working at a 3-star headquarters down there.
Sure.
Um, but also, you know, I anytime you're in the service, and this is one thing I try to help people with, but and you have to move to a new town. You're always Nick the new guy, right? So no matter what your accomplishments were somewhere else, nobody knows you, nobody cares, and you have to start all over. So you go to the coffee shop with the open mic, and you're like, hey, and by this time you already have the spiel, because you've already done several duty stations, and you're like, hey, I'm Mike, and I sing, and yeah, I'm in the service, and I mean, because this coffee shop was right by Schofield Barracks, which is a big Army barracks on Oahu, or Army base. So, anyways, started playing there, and then that led to some other shows, and that led to putting a little band together, and then I shot a video for it's a terrible video, but it's "Start Saving Me," and we did the video for that, entered that video into a contest, and I wound up winning the opening spot for Bon Jovi.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Awesome.
oh, this is cool, And then also, before my tour had ended there, I also got picked to be to open up for the Black Eyed Peas at Bayfest, which is at Marine Corps Base Kaneohe Bay in the air station. Big show every year for the public and the folks on the base. So, to be able to play for the Black Eyed Peas at the peak of their career, and then play for Bon Jovi at the beginning of their world tour,
Yeah. It's wild.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And then from there, I went to Quantico, and then it's back to finding the local open mic. Hey, I'm Mike. I sing and play, and I mean, it's like it was Groundhog's Day, because there wasn't social media. I mean, like at the end of my tour in Hawaii, Facebook was just starting to be, as the big thing. Because I remember being in Iraq, and there was a MySpace thing, and while
Yep.
I was gone, my buddy was just like, "Hey, man, I can spruce up your MySpace page and make it look cooler." I'm like, I can't access this thing, until they put MySpace on the SIPRnet. I don't have access to be able to go and do updates or whatever. But I
Yep.
mean, it's just crazy. I remember I was in Fallujah. I was in my COC, the Command Operations Center, and I got notified that one of my songs was going to be in a show called Joan of Arcadia, which was on CBS, and it was a big show at the time, but um and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, So I remember that's when I learned about publishing, because I got $2,500 for them to use the song, but then I got another $2,500 um, as the writer. I'm like, what? Okay, right.
Yep.
So now I start kind of looking into this a little bit, and even now I still get royalties from that show, even though it's on like the third um, iteration of reruns somewhere on the other side of the world, where the pay scale
Right.
is absolute minimal, but I still get about $1.34 a year from that song. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, I mean, every once a year I try to go to a 7-Eleven or a Starbucks. Oh, I can't go to Starbucks, but I'd go to McDonald's or something, get a cup of coffee, and go, yeah, this is well earned. This is good stuff. I'm drinking my success. So, but anyway, so 2014 rolls around. I am the executive officer at the Wounded Warrior Regiment in Quantico, and I get a email from a buddy of mine in Fort Sill, and he goes, "Hey, there is the MWR folks are looking for people in the services who play and sing and do whatever, and um, it's somehow tied to the ACMs, Academy of Country Music."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay," so I submitted a couple videos, told them what I did. Next thing you know, I got chosen for the part. I had a film crew from CBS, or it was the Dick Clark Productions. It was going to be on CBS. Um, Saying, "Hey, you've been selected to perform at the Academy of Country Music All-Star Salute to the Troops, and we need to do some backstory stuff and some B-roll stuff." So we shot it at the office. We shot it at the Marine Corps Museum. They were super cool. Let us do that. Um, and that was all kind of the build up piece that aired, and then I'm sorry, let me back up. While the crew was there, they came to the house, we did an interview, and then they gave me a letter, and I opened the letter and it says, "Hey, congratulations, you've been selected to perform the All-Star Salute to the Troops, and we're going to team you up with Toby Keith for a performance of his song Call a Marine."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, to be in Iraq, and that Toby's been there and he's been to the different camps and fobs and all that kind of stuff, and all the stuff that he had been doing. I was just like, man, this is awesome. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go. So wound up doing that. That brought about some exposure, some big exposure. Um, Played another event with him that year in St. Louis. Um, Kept in touch with his team, his label, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was pretty neat. But there's a lot of opportunities in the military to not only play music, because there's always the barracks room or your house or bedroom or whatever. So if nothing else, you can play for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, there's the opportunity to go out and play the open mics and things like that, and that's a big step. That's a big step to, you can sound like the king or queen of your room or your barracks room or whatever, but until you go out and perform in front of people, um it's kind of nerve-wracking to make that step. But then once you get there and once you do it, and then just like in the military or any other thing, it's repetition, repetition, repetition. You get more comfortable doing it, you get better at it, you learn how to interact with a crowd and all this kind of stuff. So um that's all part of it. And then to have, a national TV appearance, and have, the opportunity to open up a world tour for a big act, or play alongside some of these bigger acts. It all helps you all, you take all that stuff in, and then, that's part of what I'm doing now, is kind of giving that back to some of our veteran artists, and just kind of let them know, hey, you got to work at it, but you also got an important job to do first, that kind of thing. So it's all about balance. And it's just music, I guess, has always been interwoven in my life and in my military career,
Yeah.
despite being an infantry guy.
Yeah. Mike, it's fascinating. And I'm sure when you reflect on this, you played with some great names, obviously. You mentioned Bon Jovi, Toby Keith, of course, the late and unfortunately, I was gonna say the great and unfortunately late Toby Keith. Um, I saw quite a few clips and videos of all these other folks you played with. And I'm sure it's like you're starstruck when you meet them, but then you realize that, holy cow, like you're playing with them.
Mm,
And it must have struck you at some point, like, holy cow, this is the level I'm at. And I would also argue, of course, I'm biased, that for them, they play with a lot of people, but you're one they're not going to forget either because you were a Marine. Like how many people from the military actually can migrate into the world of the arts in the way that you have? It's not easy. It's not easy at all, but you took the hill over and over again. And even when you hit resistance, you kept going forward. And that's what's led to this incredible journey you're on. So I'm sure they're thinking, holy cow, I played with that. I played with the Marine. That's pretty darn cool. you know?
yeah.
So you're inspiring not only fellow veterans, but all the other folks that may not have the military background to see the level you're at, see what you're doing, see how you're encouraging others. I mean, you're a force to be reckoned with. You're doing it in the right way, but you can be taking mountains with what you're doing and your skill set. So it's really really impressive. So what what was the year where you were done with the Marine Corps? What was that first year? And I guess lead into today. Like how's things going with Harmony Hill and some of the other things we referenced? Just educate our listeners and don't be bashful as far as, we love to support all of our listeners are veterans or um, true patriots that really want to support veterans. So give us the names of the sites, the albums, things that we can do to help contribute to you and these other performers that you're helping.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for that opportunity to do
Oh, of
that.
course. Yeah.
Um, I think I think for, I just turned 54. And I think for me, um, some of that stuff is hard to do. It's hard to go, look at me, look at me, look at what I'm doing, look at this, look at that,
Mhm.
because in today's world, we have all of these social media sites, and everybody is growing up going, look at me, look at me, look at me. You know what I
Right.
mean? And there, it's just, it's not good or bad. It's just different.
Right.
Right. So anyways, I retired in July of 2020. Um, I was going to get out a couple years prior, but then I wound up getting selected for command. And I thought to the command position was at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina.
Mm.
And I thought to start my Marine Corps career as a platoon commander, as a O1, and then leave as an O6 commander at Camp Lejeune. I was like, that's that's a cool way to bookend it.
Yep.
So um I did the final 2 years, and I think that put me at like 28 years of commission time. Um, 20, I had that 4.5 year break when I left active duty before I got mobilized. So that doesn't count like towards retirement. But active duty time, I think I wound up having just under 24 years. Um, so I finished that, and then I was just like, well, my wife and I are like, where are we? And she also retired from the Air Force Reserve. She was a flight medic. She flew medevac missions in Afghanistan
Oh, wow.
uh, right after 9/11. She got
Sure.
mobilized and deployed. That's a hard pill to swallow for a Marine.
Sure.
Is like your wife gets to go first. But anyways, so I got done with the Marine Corps, and we were like, hey, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? And one of our duty stations was New Orleans because that's the headquarters of Marine Forces Reserve. And we had done some time down there and really liked it, liked the people, like they got great sports teams, or occasionally. Um, LSU is usually pretty strong, but um, so we went down there, and I got a job as a junior ROTC instructor at a high school. So I still got to wear the uniform. I got to teach. high school kids about um, not necessarily the Marine Corps per se, although there was a lot of that because I have a lot of pride in that. And we were Marine JROTC. So, there's certain things that are expected. But the thing that I really tried to hit home was the 14 leadership traits and the leadership principles and, things like integrity and tact and courage and endurance and, those kind of things, the intangibles, because I think they really need it. And I think they were really kind of starving for it. And I think we need more of it in our youth. But anyways,
Agreed.
so then I was working with veteran artists even while I was a commander at Camp Lejeune for the last tour. I had a little bit of money. I bought a little bit of recording gear, and I was working with some artists in the area that were on active duty. Again, kind of that, hey, yeah, I've been there, and let's try to figure it out, right? Um, and it was all done, pretty much uh, free of charge. There were some things that we had to pay for, like the mixing and the mastering and stuff. But like as far as the studio time, I didn't charge for that. I was gaining experience, but I was also lending experience. So um, it was always something I wanted to do, to have a studio and help veteran artists and just artists in general. So that kind of got put on the back burner. Moved to Louisiana, had a studio in the big room over the garage, kind of built that up, was doing my own stuff, working with other people, bringing people in. Um, and then somebody sent us this Zillow. I'm sorry, my wife's best friend sent us this Zillow listing for this property here in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is about an hour south of Nashville. And it has the house, it has some acreage. It's pretty much isolated, and they had this big. I don't know, it's not a barn, it's more of a structure workshop kind of thing, whatever. But so I saw that, and that weekend I drove up and met with a realtor and walked the property, and I'm like, yeah, this is it.
Yep.
This is what we can do. So I go and we bought the place, and I left after 2.5 years at the high school. I sat everybody down and I said, "Hey," I said, this is something I've always wanted to do. This is an opportunity to go up there and build a studio and pretty much fulfill my dream. And I would be a hypocrite to stand here as your instructor and as a leader and say, "Hey, go chase your dream," but not chase mine.
Right.
And I was really blown away by how many of the kids were like, "Wow, that's that's cool."
Yep.
Like I thought that would be above them, kind of over their head, and they'd be like, "Yeah, whatever." You're quitting, but they didn't see it that way at all. And I was just like, "Hey, I I have to do this," and and they still keep in touch on social media and that kind of thing. I still kind of check out some of the stuff that they're doing, and but I got up here, and some good friends of mine, we got together and we started doing a lot of cleaning, and then we started doing a lot of demo, and then construction, and all those, watching HGTV all that
Yeah,
time
yeah. Good
finally
old,
paid off.
good old fashioned
So
GI parties. Yeah, yeah.
that's right. So, we built a we call it the retreat. It's a um, 2 bedroom, like an Airbnb. It's got you know 2 bedrooms, bath. It's a house. It's got everything you need.
Sure.
And it has a big table where you can sit around and you can do some writing. It's got this place it's just, it's very peaceful. It's beautiful out here. And then we built the studio. So we have 3 rooms in the studio. We have the great room. We have the vocal lounge. It's too big to call itself a vocal booth, but it's a vocal lounge. And then we have the control room, which I'm sitting in right now. And it's just a it's just a fantastic place. I mean, I really love the fact that I can get up in the morning, grab some coffee, and then walk about 50 feet to work,
Yeah.
which is so completely opposite of the insane amount of hours that I would work or spend away from friends and family or whatever. So it's just, you know, for all those out there that have a dream, or if you're in the military, man, do your time, you know, get the retirement and then do what you love,
Yeah.
and while you're in the service, start planning. We all know how to do some type of, short, mid, and long range planning. But
Yeah.
anyways, so it's working out. And this we call this place Harmony Hill, and because there's harmony in music, of course, and then there's harmony in people gathering and being together and the camaraderie, and it's huge in the military and the veteran community, and even in the military community, you don't realize how much you're going to miss it when you get out, right? So when you do get out, you kind of you may not know you crave it, but you do. And that's one of the things that we do up here. We bring in veterans and we get together, and the veterans that we bring in, they all have a common love for music. Number one, they all have some type of drive or desire to do the songwriting thing or the performance thing or the recording thing or whatever. So, we do that. But at Harmony Hill, um, uh, it also serves as the headquarters for A Hero Records. A Hero is a nonprofit that was started by a friend of mine, Major Lee Stuckey, who's a retired Marine officer and wounded warrior, and he had a pretty rough path. There's a podcast out there that he and I did in this control room right here, but he kind of talks about his journey, and he got out, he had TBI,
Hmm.
didn't really, you know, didn't really understand it at the time, but was just making a lot of bad choices, and most of those choices for him were fueled by alcohol, and then alcohol just became a thing. And he got to the point where he had the pistol in his mouth, and I'm only saying this because he says it. I'm not,
Right.
I'm not
Right.
sharing any secrets here. Um, but then and then at that time he got a call from his mom, while he was out in his truck with the pistol in his mouth, and that was kind of a sign from a higher power. But
Absolutely.
he wound up creating A Hero, which is actually it's an acronym, so it's American Heroes Enjoying Recreation Outdoors, and he's an avid hunter. So they do a lot of hunting trips, a lot of fishing trips, things like that, where they get warriors and first responders out, and they just they have a good weekend. They talk about you know challenges and things like that, and then they try to get them help, which is awesome. Um, and then one thing I learned in the Marine Corps, or in the Wounded Warrior Regiment when I was there, is we would always try to find whatever that spark is, or how to reignite the spark or the flame for somebody's passion. And there's always things like hunting and fishing and whatever, but it's different for everybody. And that's when you start getting into the arts. Some people, you put a guitar in their hands, and not only is it working the cognitive aspect of it, but it's a way to emote, to get feelings out instead of just harboring them in. Same thing with art. Same thing, they mask therapy and all this kind of stuff. And so we were talking about that, and he's just like, yeah. So they had a program called Music for a Hero, where they would sit down with um, veterans, and they would put some hit songwriters around them and learn their story, write the song, like learn their story, turn it into song, and then release it. And one of the ones that we did was for a Marine. His name is Corporal Mike Miller.
Oh,
And we
yes.
wrote this song
Yeah.
called My Legacy. And Mike was, um, he deployed twice, got a couple of Purple Hearts, got back, got out of the Marine Corps. I mean, he just did his time, wasn't the lifer, and he knew that he needed to go. He went late in his life. I think he enlisted at like 27 or something, but he just knew that he needed to do his part, and he did. Got back, was working construction, fell off the scaffolding, broke his back. And then while they were looking at his x-rays and stuff, they found this mass in his head, and they're like, hey, what's this? So come to find out, he had stage 4 brain cancer. So, we at the time, now we knew this, and we had an A Hero function in Pensacola. It was a fishing event. We brought in some songwriters. We sat down with him and his 3 kids and his wife, and just learned of his story. And we wound up turning that into a song called My Legacy, and we put that out there. It came out, I want to say, on March 31st of last year, or somewhere around the end of the month. And then it came out on a Friday, and he passed on Monday. But, his family still has that song to heal. We got to write kind of his legacy. So lot of healing in music.
Yeah.
It's a great way to communicate. It's a great way to heal. It's a great way to share.
Yeah.
And then we decided, hey, let's work on a bigger music program, one that encompasses, so A Hero Records. You have a record label that is for military or veterans or first responders, or some kind of amazing story some compelling story that we just want to help get out there. But the subset of that is Music for a Hero, which is more of the music therapy, right? Bringing people in, gathering them around, writing together, talking together, hanging together, just again, kind of bringing them back to that camaraderie aspect. So we've been working with some great artists, and Tim Murray is one of them. And there's several others that I want to turn you on to. But then at Harmony Hill, later this spring, we're actually launching Harmony Hill Records, which is kind of the civilian component of a label. Or A Hero is geared specifically towards veterans, first responders. Harmony Hill is going to be kind of your traditional record label, or anybody could be on it. But we have one artist in particular that we're writing for. We're starting to put together. She is flying in mid-March, so we're going to record that and start putting it together. But I'm super excited. Her name is Myra Washington, just a fantastic powerhouse singer.
What you're leading up to is that old phrase, force multiply, right? You got everybody that but then the network just grows from there.
Yeah.
And all mission focused. I love everything you guys are doing down there. This is fantastic.
It's it's an amazing place, and I got a buddy of mine, he's my studio partner, and he comes in, and every other week he and his wife and sometimes his family will drive in from near Annapolis, Maryland, and they will drive 13 hours each way to come in for a weekend, and they've been doing it pretty much every other weekend. Through the building phase, now the recording phase, and now and then the place that we have here, we've got a veteran owned and operated film company in the Nashville area that's coming here to
Perfect.
shoot. So it just, you know, when I was leaving the Wounded Warrior Regiment and I was going to my duty station, that's in Quantico, Virginia, and I was going to my new duty station in New Orleans, I stopped in Nashville and I had a chat with TK Kimbrell, who is Toby Keith's manager. And I'll never forget one of the things he said was, if you're going to be in this business, you need to be here. You have to be here. And that always stuck with me. And, when it was time to, if you're going to do this and you're going to do it for real, you got to go to where, and it was
Yep.
just like, you got to be here. You got
Yep.
to be here. So I'm here. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then, and I've also been super to become good friends with a gentleman named David Corlew. David Corlew is or was Charlie Daniels'
Yeah.
manager
Charlie
of
Daniels.
40, yeah, 41 years. One of his best friends. They've got, I mean, just the stories are incredible. But, the thing that he's doing now is he runs the Journey Home Project, the journeyhomeproject.org. If you check that out, something he started with Charlie, and now he pretty much does it himself. And they do great things for veterans. They raise a lot of money, and they do, they work with scholarships for the fallen and their family, and I mean, just so many great things that they're doing. And he is prominent. He's the the driving force behind all that. So one of the things that we're doing, and I just got a note from him this morning, and we had a conversation yesterday, but on April 20th, he is going to come to Harmony Hill, and he is going to be our music business mentor. So we're going to bring in some veteran artists, somewhere around 8 to 10, maybe 12 tops, because we want to keep it really intimate. And I want them to experience the the things that I've learned from the conversations that I've had with him, because he's got some incredible insight into the music business.
Yeah. Decades and
Um,
decades just sitting there. Yep.
absolutely. So, we're going to bring him in as a mentor. We're going to bring in some social media experts from the Nashville area who, understand algorithms and all the kind of stuff and all the stuff that you need. So that, again, we can arm our crew, our veteran artists and stuff with the tools that they need to be successful. So we're not a typical record label, either on the Harmony Hill side or the A Hero side, where there's a bunch of money and you get a cash advance and we charge it all back and all this stuff. It's pretty much you know, the artists make out,
Yeah.
right? Because that's not why we're doing it. We were doing it to help them. Uh, but and then we're going to bring in some songwriters, and then we're going to bring in some producers, and again have those same type of retreats, those discussions, and just give them the tools that they need. So
Mhm.
A Hero Records is aherorecords.com. If you want to learn about A Hero, the organization, especially a veteran or a first responder, and you want to participate in some of their events, and they're all over the place. So they're based out of Alabama, but they're all over the place.
Okay.
But that is aherousa.org.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a true nonprofit aspect. We are a subset of them. We have a .com website, um, but not to be fooled with. There's
Right.
no. We are a non-for-profit label when it comes to that side. Um, if you want to check out Harmony Hill, either the studio or what we got going on, we haven't launched our label site just yet, but you can go to Harmony Hill TN Tennessee HITN.com, or you can go to harmonyhillstudio.com, and it's all the same site, two different names. But
Perfect.
yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up this spring, both with artists and hosting people. Um, but yeah, the majority of things that we do are veteran based, and we grow our our contacts and things like that, and just provide opportunities for veteran artists.
That's great, Mike. And folks, we'll have links to everything just to reference there. It'll be on our main page under Mike's bio. So if you couldn't jot all those down, don't worry. Just go to the limacharlieshow.com and you'll find everything Mike just referenced. So, well, this is just absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you for your time, obviously, and what you're doing, but I always have to ask this fun little final question. With everything you've experienced now, especially like you mentioned, there was two times, not just one time, where you were thinking about doing this for a living, and the world and higher powers changed it a little bit for you. But even before that, way before that, if you could time travel back and just have a moment or two with your younger self when you were looking at the different academies, different places to go, different branches, before you actually raised your hand and took that oath, if you could just go back to that time and just have a moment or two to talk to your younger self with everything you've learned, what would be the message to young Mike about this incredible journey he was about to start?
Go all in,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Whatever you do. So, in the Marine Corps, it was all in. It was whatever it takes. You stay at the office or the office or whatever until it's done. Or I did. Maybe that's not the right approach. I don't know, but I like to think that I helped some people out. Um, yeah, just go all in. Don't half-ass anything. If you're gonna go, and just have have resilience, have perseverance. Know that, the thing with music is you, there's a lot of times you need to check your ego. A funny little story. Um, we were working our way up the food chain, starting to do well. We sold out this place in Greenville, North Carolina. It was called the Attic. It was like 600 people was capacity, but like the Black Crows played there, Hootie and the Blowfish played there, Dave Matthews played. I'm like, it's the place where everybody plays right before it happens, kind of thing. And I was just like, yes, and then I remember going up to Norfolk, Virginia. We went to a place called the Norva. We opened up for this guy named John Mayer. Didn't know him. This is pre-internet, not pre-internet, but pre-social media. I had no idea who this guy was. But I mean, again, back to ego, and you got to have some confidence. But I was just like, who is John Mayer, and how come he's not opening up for us, right? And that's super arrogant. But uh, after watching his show, I'm like, holy smokes, this guy is the real deal. I mean, this guy is amazing. And we were back in the green room, and I remember, we got the conversation got on to, hey, where'd you play last night, kind of thing. I'm like, oh yeah, we were at the Attic, and it's in Greenville, and it's a rite of passage place, and this and that, and it's like, yeah, we sold it out, and I'm feeling real good about myself. I'm completely over my skis because this was before the show. And I was like, how about you? Where were you last night? He's like, Conan. And I'm like, okay. And then so that was on like a Saturday, right? And then on a Tuesday night, we're back playing a menu venue where we get like, a couple $100 and some free chicken wings kind of thing. And it's like, you got to be able to remain steady. You can't just be like, oh, I'm on this trajectory of stardom and it's going to be great. You have to have some humility, and I had forgotten that. you know. And then I think back to that, and I was just like, you idiot, you know. How about having a little bit of grace, you know?
Yeah, it's a
But
great story though. That's
yeah,
fantastic. So you don't, like you said, all in. That's all that matters. As long as you're all in, you know, wins, losses, the scores don't matter as much. But it's just the game. It's what
yeah,
you're doing is your passion. Ty Cobb never sat around and talked about all the times he missed, but here he is with this veteran, by the way. But here he is still with the greatest, the greatest stats, even though he missed more than he hit. But yeah, you're all in, and you're teaching. More importantly, you're teaching. Well, first of all, you share the same philosophy there with your cadre, but you're teaching the next generation to be all in. You're giving them that's part of your legacy. You're preparing them for success based on all the things you went through. So each of those steps is something that's helping them maybe mitigate the losses on their end. So I just commend you and everyone down there for what you guys are doing. This is fantastic stuff.
thank you so much. It's
Yep.
it's my way of still serving.
Yep.
Um, but I can also tell you that when I got here and I spent a lot of time alone building and doing stuff, and being busy and having a purpose was was important. It was really important.
Mhm.
Um, but that was the first time that I realized that I'm on my own, you know, because even at, coming, obviously in the Marine Corps, you're surrounded by Marines. I went down and, taught JROTC at a high school, and I'm surrounded by at least still Marine culture because I'm now the one that's teaching it. And I had a gunny that worked with me, retired drill instructor, and it was kind of the two of us. But I still had, my Superman suit. I still got to wear my uniform, and it was a good way to titrate off of, a long time of military service. But um, this is where I really had a chance to think and then realize that I can remain isolated and I can, remain in a shell, so to speak, or I can, continue ways to figure out how to bring people together. And it's not only good for them, it's good for me.
Yeah.
I love to have, like, we had a weekend and we had a guy named Micah Howard, amazing artist, the Southern Ghost. Micah Howard, he's out of Eastern Tennessee. We had Matt England here. He's up close to Nashville, but more towards the Kentucky side. Tim Murray was here. We had here. They all happen to be Marines. They're veterans, but they just happen to be Marines. And then you talk to them, like Micah Howard and I were both in Bravo Company, First Battalion, Second Marines. Now 20 something years apart, and when I tell them stories of, well, when I had this thing called a lensatic compass and we had a prick 77 and it had two knobs on the radio, and they're like, I mean, it's funny, but at the same time we still have so many kind of common bonds, and it's just good to sit around and and kind of shoot the bull for a little bit, and then also have a place where I can help them out.
Yeah.
But then just by being here, they're also kind of helping me out because it still keeps me engaged in the culture that I spent the better part of 3 decades in. Um, and you don't self isolate.
Right. It's a family business. The veteran family. That's for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
it's tribe oriented.
Yep.
It's tribe
Absolutely.
oriented.
Well, this has been great, Mike and folks. As I mentioned earlier, you can find all of the content discussed today on our site. Check out the links, check out the albums, check out the artists. Of course, Mike himself, a fantastic songwriter and singer. You can buy their albums, check out their projects, check out their events, and see how you can support them and all the fantastic work they're doing. And right after this, we're going to actually go right into one of Mike's original pieces. But first, I just want to say again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service, Mike. And just know we're all big fans and really proud of you. So,
Thank you so much. I do have one request
of
for
course, yeah.
all of your listeners and viewers is with any of these artists, or like the A Hero Records, you can find us at A Hero Records on all the social media sites, at Harmony Hill TN on all the social media sites, whatever, the Google stuff. But Tim Murray,
Hmm.
Micah Howard, Matt England, Kevin Adair. Shoot, I'm gonna forget people. I'm sorry. But if you go to their social media pages and you hit like or follow, and then every once in a while, if they put a post out there and they're playing a song in their bedroom or wherever they are at a venue,
Hmm.
and you hit like, or if they put out some music and you go to Spotify or Apple and you just click a heart or click a like button or whatever, you know, it doesn't cost anything other than a little bit of your time, but it really helps them out. And then if you share it and you tell people to, ask people to do the same, it costs nothing, but it sure means a lot. And then in this world and day and age of algorithms and likes and stats and posts, and it's not just, um, anyways, it helps them. And,
Yeah.
if people could do that, that sure would be awesome.
Yeah, and folks, I'll reiterate Mike's point there because as I'm learning more and more about the social media, keep in mind I started off as a AM radio fellow. But to Mike's point, this is really how you help the artists out there, get recommended and kind of get up through the feeds for other people. So I wish there was a button out there instead of a like and a heart. I wish there was one for a salute. This is your way of thanking a veteran, saluting their work. And to Mike's point, if you can take your time and listen, first of all, it's incredible music. There's a story to everything you hear, and just share. And as we do with our show each week, share these veteran stories loud and clear. You want to thank a veteran and show your gratitude. This is the easiest, simplest way to do that. And pick up a copy of their tracks and albums as well. So, well, thanks again,
And
Mike.
it's all free. I mean,
There you
there
go.
is no buying music anymore. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So, all right, folks. Well, thanks again. We've been sitting here with Mike Corrado, singer, songwriter, and just all around fantastic veteran. So, thanks for your service and your time. And here's one of his original pieces. Stand by.